5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is already a gaming system that covers a lot of bases, but I see a lot of third-party creators taking the monsters from the slightly outdated Monster Manual from Wizards of the Coast and making them stronger and more dangerous to fight. But with today's module, we're actually taking those monsters and giving them weaknesses for your players to discover and exploit. Hi there fellow role players and game masters, my name is Mr. Trosk and this is still your go-to YouTube channel for everything third-party Dungeons & Dragons related, and today I want to talk about Monster Weaknesses, a module that is on the Dungeon Masters Guild that I got sent to my doorstep a while ago and I find really interesting for a couple of reasons. But the main reason is that it's a super original way of looking at redesigning the monsters from the Monster Manual, because most creators are basically making them stronger, they're taking them, giving them new abilities, making them more wicked and more interesting. But the common problem with the Monster Manual for me is that the stat blocks from the original Monster Manual for 5th edition are just plain boring. Like, not all of them, but a lot of them are plain boring. And the creators of this book actually are giving every monster in the Monster Manual of Wizards of the Coast a weakness or two weaknesses or even more weaknesses for your players to find and then exploit if they find it. Now, these weaknesses are combat weaknesses, but there's also a role-playing weaknesses for monsters in here that speak languages that are available to the players. So I want to look into the PDF of this physical book that you can get on the Dungeon Masters Guild, but I first want to say a little thing about the physical book itself. First of all, yay for physical books. I really like that the Dungeon Master Guild still gives people the option to have print-on-demand physical books, because I like physical books at my table. Also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Dungeon Master Guild has some new printers or printing standards or whatever, and the books are just turning out way better than they were in the past. Like the paper quality and the artwork quality and everything, like the colors pop way more and the covers are like normally a couple of years ago they were way more vague and stuff, but now it's looking really, really good. Now, there's one complaint I have with this physical book, and that is, for me, it is way too thin for a hardcover. That's basically my opinion. And there's another thing. Due to the nature of this book being just something that you open up when you have a monster, I'm just gonna say something. For example, we'll look in the PDF a little bit later, but for example, there is the Night Hag. But these are her weaknesses, right? These are the weaknesses of the Night Hag. So this is more of a quick reference book that you put on your table, or you take out of your inside pocket of your jacket and you're like, oh, what weaknesses does it have? Okay, and you put it aside. So I would really love, I know it's not an option on the Dungeon Masters Guild, so I'm nitpicking here, but I would really love this in a pocket-sized version. Like, not hardcover, like soft cover, pocket-sized version, just as a quick reference guide. This would be amazing. And if there was ever a Kickstarter that had like a printing run for this, I know it's probably not possible due to it being on the Dungeon Masters Guild, but for this in a pocket size, I would back that Kickstarter like immediately, because I really like the monster weaknesses and I'm going to add them in my game every now and then when I use a monster from the Monster Manual. So without further ado, let's log in to the PDF and see what you actually get. And this is the PDF of Monster Weaknesses. First of all, I want to really thank the creators of this one for sending me the physical copy together with the PDF. I always totally, completely, 100% appreciate it when people do that. And I like getting my hands on new stuff, especially if it's as original as this one. Now, to my viewers, if you want to support me and you want to see me continue reviewing Dungeon Masters Guild content, the only way I can do so is with your support. There will be a PayPal link in the description below, where you can donate me like $1, $10, I don't know, a gazillion dollars, whatever, even like $1, because that really makes a difference for me to be able to continue what I'm doing. So Monster Weaknesses, let's just look into it. Monster Weaknesses has a really good setup. First of all, there is a foreword and everything, and there's how to use this book. We'll get in that a little bit later. But the cool thing is, they actually put everything, they classify it in like aberrations, there's beasts, so yeah, aberrations, beasts, celestials, constructs, dragons, fiends, fae, elementals, giants, humanoids, oozes, plants, monstrosities, and undead. So that's a really good way to classify everything. And all of the monsters in the original 5th edition Monster Manual has at least one weakness or two weaknesses, or sometimes three weaknesses depending on the monster and what languages it speaks. It can even be like a role-playing weakness. Now they go into how to use this book, and I just want to go quickly. Look, this artwork is, by the way, super cool. They really go into how your players can discover weaknesses by making checks and everything, but also going really original about combat and everything, and how you as a dungeon master can introduce this weakness, because you don't want to just go out and tell your players what the weakness is if the character wouldn't know what the weakness is. But if they make a good check, or they do something that just happens to out that weakness to the players, you can tell them. So there's a really good guide for doing that. They also go into like, it's your world, so it's your rules. So not all weaknesses in here might make sense in your world, in your version of the Dungeons and Dragons world that you are playing in, which is cool. It is something that is meant to be taken and dropped into your game as when you need it, at the times that you need it. So there's combat weaknesses, there's social weaknesses, discovering weaknesses. So everything is in here, how to use it, what kind of checks you can make, and there's even an optional feat in here, which is cool, tactician. And basically, as a bonus action, you can make an intelligence check, which is 10 plus the DC of the monster. Which can be really high if you're fighting like at a higher level, you know, 19 or like a CR 30 intelligence check to just discover a weakness. If you succeed, you are able to learn the condition immunities, damage resistances, damage immunities, damage vulnerabilities, or weaknesses of a creature of your choice. So you can choose whatever you learn from that, which is really cool. It's an extra little feat that you can put in your game and give your players, like, really makes sense for like a, I don't know, a ranger or people that are really like, maybe like a druid who's really into like beasts and animals and plants, who are like always studying like their behaviors and everything. So it's really flavorful feat, and I like there's just an extra feat in there. So the way it is set up is actually really cool. So for example, they start with aberrations, and they always, for every section, they introduce an NPC who discovered weaknesses for the creatures they're talking about. And there are even quotes that are in here. Do you ever get the feeling you're being watched from everywhere? Well, you probably are. Who is like this NPC saying that? So there is an NPC you can even put in your game. It's inspiration for you. And then they go into all of the aberrations in the Monster Manual and actually give them like a weakness. And I'm just going to go and talk about a few, because the book just kind of like, it's more of a pick and choose kind of thing. So I want to go over a few. It's not an overly long video because it's a very straightforward book, and there's not more to it than it just promises to do. And it does exactly what it promises to do and not more, which I really, really love. I love usability. Mind Flayer, for example. I really like this one. Psionic Overload. If the Mind Flayer takes 25 or more psychic damage in a turn, not in one attack, but in a turn, its psionic ability is temporarily overloaded, and it loses control of all of its trolls, who can then act independently until the end of its next turn. So a Mind Flayer has like, they control stuff with their mind, but they can get like overload, which is really cool. That's a cool way of looking at it. For example, I'm just gonna look at another one. Let's see, there's all kinds of slots in here. Slots, spectator, reflective eye rays. When a creature holding a reflective surface succeeds on a saving throw against one of the spectator's eye rays, it can immediately, it's by the way a lower level beholder, a spectator, it can immediately use its reaction to redirect the eye ray, causing another creature within 60 feet to become the target instead. That's really cool. You're just standing in front of a freaking beholder with a mirror. Or you're like shining your armor just to fight this beholder, and then you make these saving throws, and then these rays come into your armor, and then boom, it's really cool to have your players actually discover that while they're fighting the beholder. Here's another NPC with beasts. For example, there is the baboon, which is if a baboon is hit by another creature's or starts its turn in the area of a foul smell, it must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it enters a rage for 1 minute. So a baboon can rage. For the duration, the baboon is hostile to all creatures. It can repeat the saving throw at the end of its turn, each of its turn, ending the effect on it. So yeah, that's really cool. It's like a baboon is already like a really dangerous monkey. It's really vicious. But having them like rage and attack everything, I would even give them like advantage on their attacks and go completely reckless on everybody, which can be really, really dangerous. And as you can see, all of these creatures in the Monster Manual are actually in here. And for example, let's just click the Ctrl F, and because my name is Mr. Tarask, I will just type in Tarask. There it is, page 50. There is the Tarask. It's even hyperlinked, which I always love. Right there. Death from within. If the death glyph from a symbol spell is fully inscribed on the interior stomach lining of a Tarask, it is reduced to 0 hit points. I don't know where they got it, but it's really cool. I really like, by the way, the symbol spell, where I don't know if you know it, it's a really underused spell in my games. But basically, you can put a symbol on a stone or an item or whatever, and then say its trigger. And when it is triggered, it can do like 4 or 5 different things, depending on what you say it's going to do. It can do like damage, put people to sleep, make people ramble against each other or fight each other, stuff like that. But if you use that within the inside of a Tarask, it dies immediately, which is really cool because the Tarask, whatever, has like, if you have this and you know this weakness, you might have like this one player wanting to be swallowed by the Tarask, and you get like this Man in Black where Will Smith is in front of this big cockroach, is like, eat me, and the Tarask eats them, and then they're trying to cast a spell from within the Tarask. Really cool. Another one I really want to know is, yes, I haven't read them all, because that's the fun part of Purple, oh, it's in the same page, Purple Worm. Purple Worm, not Worm, Worm is Dutch. Thunderous Response. Purple worms rely on vibrations to locate prey. Okay, I really need this kind of like this first sentence like explains why this could be a weakness, what I'm going to read right now, probably. If a spell or effect causes a loud noise centered within 10 feet of the worm must immediately use its reaction to make a tail stinger attack targeted on that space. So let's say somebody casts, I don't know, what's a loud spell? Is Toll the Death a loud spell? Let's say somebody casts a spell next to the worm that makes a lot of noise, and then you as a Dungeon Master have the worm attack that square. The spellcaster, if they're smart, they will notice like, wait a second, I can have this worm make attacks against that square by casting this spell again and again and again and again, so other players, other characters really can like backstab it, and it's just focused on something else. It's focused on my spells. Really, really cool way of looking at something like Tremor Sense, because they have Tremor Sense and they're like, boom, oh, attack it, right? And also, I just really like purple worms. Another one, and this is going to be the last one I will talk about that I really like, is the gelatinous cube. Gelatinous cube, which is, when exposed to frigid temperatures, the gelatinous makeup of the cube begins to solidify. If a cube takes cold damage, creatures have advantage on dexterity saving throws to avoid being engulfed by the cube until the end of its next turn. That's taking what the creature is and what it can do, thinking about it like, what could a weakness be? And you will, if you add this to your game, players who suddenly accidentally do cold damage will notice that it's being frozen in a way, right? And it will just move slightly slower so people can get out of the way faster when it's trying to engulf people, which I absolutely like. And the like the entire book is this, right? Oh, wow. Holy shit, that's cool. The entire book is like, this is probably going to be my thumbnail. The entire book is just weaknesses for every monster in the 5th edition Monster Manual, and I just think it is worth, if you want to add an extra layer to your game and have people, especially like those meta gamers that are always looking for ways to defeat monsters, you can really give that to your meta gamers and be like, hey, this is something new and something you need to discover, and those meta gamers will be always looking for weaknesses, which is really cool. Extra layer you can add to your 5th edition game if you're playing with players who have been playing for a while. So Monster Weakness is really well worth checking out. Make sure to click the link in the description below, and until next video, bye bye.